Okay, finding the surface area and volume of the cone in terms of pi. We can do surface area first. Surface area equals, we've got this 1/2. Basically, we can kind of treat, if we were to slice this cone down the edge and open it up, it would mimic a triangle to a certain extent. And the triangle, remember, is 1/2 base times height. So in this case, if we sliced it down the edge and opened it up, the base is actually the circumference of the circle. And the formula for circumference of the circle is 2 pi r. Okay, and then the height of it would be the slant height. So when you look at your formulas, you can see that they've simplified that down because this right here, the 1/2 times 2, that just cancels itself out. And so you get, as a simplified formula, pi times r times the slant height. Okay, but essentially what you're getting, it's the same thing. It's like 1/2 base times height, and this piece is the base, 2 pi r, the base being the circumference, times the height of that triangle that you'd make would be the lateral slant height. Okay, so it simplifies down to that. Now, if we're doing surface area, we've got to also then add pi r squared because that's what the base is, and we got to include the base. Okay, plus pi r squared. So let's plug in. Pi stays pi times the radius is 8 times, we don't know what the slant height is. So we need to calculate that right now. So let's do this. Let's take a look. Essentially, we've got two legs of a right triangle, and we're looking for the hypotenuse. So if I was to sketch that down here, okay, we've got 15 and 8, and we don't know, so we're looking for C, that measurement. So what we've got is a squared plus b squared equals c squared, or a squared plus b squared, all square rooted, will equal c. You should be able to write the Pythagorean theorem this way with ease, just knowing that a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and that you're going to have to square root it anyway, so let's just write it like that. So we say, okay, the square root of 8 squared plus 15 squared, square root of 64 plus 225, okay, and I'll write it over here, continuing over here, that becomes the square root of 289 is equal to C, and square root of 289, that's 17, okay, and that's the slant height. And that's actually Pythagorean triple, the 8, 15, 17. Not as common, but it is. So that's what it is. So we found this to be 17 meters. And actually, let me write that differently because it's kind of in the way of our calculations. I'll just write it up here, 17 meters. So then when we fill this in for the slant height, I put 17, okay, plus pi times, what's the radius? The radius is 8 times 8 squared. Okay, and when we calculate that out, we say 8 times 17 is 136, so 136 pi. And 8 times 8 is 64, so 64 pi for this part, for the area of the base. And when you add those together, you get the surface area equal to 200 pi. And since it's area, it is meters squared. And that is the surface area of this cone. Now let's find the volume. Okay, the volume of this, the formula for the volume is 1/3 area of the base times the height. And the area of the base is pi r squared times the height. So if we plug in those numbers, we can say 1/3 times pi times the radius squared times the height. And for me, for simplicity's sake, I know that I have to take a third of one of these numbers, and I see that over here, 15 is a multiple of 3, so I can do 1/3 of that and get 5 times pi times 64. And then now I just need to multiply 5 times 64. And you might know my trick, which is if I take two numbers multiplying together, whoops, and like this, I can double one number, so double this to 10, take half of the other number, this is 32, and now I'm doing 10 times 32, which is 320, and that makes it really easy. So I have now 320 pi. And what are the units? The units are meters cubed because it's volume. So there you go. That's the volume of that cone.